I'm Adam. I'm an artist. That's MoogeegooM. He's a stick artist. Yeah. Let's go make some art.
Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning back into my channel, AC Draw Stuff. I'm getting my supplies out here. So today's a really awesome, this was an awesome opportunity. It's something I've been wanting to tackle for a while. My favorite movie of all time is The Breakfast Club from 1985. And I'm going to have a picture up here of the scene that I'm painting in just a minute. After I go through all the supplies, you can see what I'm using. My watercolor paints are just some generic, I don't know, cheap brand, and they do the job. Got my Micron ink and my mechanical pencil and a little jar of water and a bunch of also very cheap brushes, because it's what you do with them, right? It's not what you have, but what you do with them. I pulled out a piece of paper from my watercolor pad, and I am taping the page down, and you do this so that it doesn't, to try to keep it from buckling. So as you add water to it. So what I'm doing is I'm sketching out the details of the image, and you can see the image in the top left corner. That's what the scene that I'm working with that you saw at the beginning of the video. It's my favorite scene in any movie. It's in my favorite movie, but it's my favorite scene in any movie. I love how John Hughes almost always does a freeze frame at the very end, and then the credits roll. And there's just so much in that scene. With Bender walking across the football field, he's very anti, sports and stuff. He's the last person who would do sports. That's not, I like sports. That's not why I like it, but I love his character. I love the character arc that he has. And so I'm sketching him out, and I am terrible at drawing humans. And I was really surprised that I kind of got the idea here fairly well. I think the most important parts of it are obviously the position of his body with the fist in the air. It's such a strong image in 80s culture and movie culture. He's got glasses. Those are going to be some 3D glasses, by the way. He's wearing sunglasses in the movie, but kind of my trademark is 3D glasses, so I put that in there. And I'm going very detailed with the pencils on this, so much so that I kind of leave the inks out as we go through the video. They're there. I ink the whole piece, but they're just over strong pencils that are already there. I used my pencil here to get as many details in as I could. So the inks are just going over top of that. But along with his fist, you got the swoosh of the jacket and the glasses and his cool pants. So now I wanted to add more uniqueness to this piece and make it me. And what my MoogeegooM cartoons that I do about my animals, my real life animals, I want to start working them into some famous imagery and in their cartoons, along with just having their own things. So I'm putting, that was Mooge that I just finished first. MoogeegooM here, MoogeegooM is next to her, and they've all got their fists in the air. And then the last one is Mother Fluffer, my three-legged cat. And so she's only got 3 legs. She's missing an arm. She's missing her left arm. And so if she were to be walking with these guys and threw her fist in the air, she'd probably fall over. So that's how I drew her, is on the ground. She threw her fist in the air. She's got in the air, good sport. But she also fell in the process. And so she's kind of seeing stars, drawing some stars there, and a little ring around her head like you'd see in the old Bugs Bunny cartoons. But she's such a good sport, and as she is in real life, that she participated. So here's a little bit of the ink process. Wanted you guys to see. I'm not going to show the whole ink process of the whole piece, but because I'm so bad with humans and specifically human faces, I really wanted to share the details up close of Bender's face, because I really like how it turned out. I'm really surprised that I'm happy with it, and I wasn't ashamed of or trying to cover anything up. Now if I had to put his eyes in there, that'd be a different story. So I'm so glad that he's wearing sunglasses in the scene, and then I can trade those sunglasses out for my 3D glasses. And when I ink, I really just go over the lines, the pencil lines. I do a lot of detail with my pencil because I don't want to screw the inks up. So a lot of watercolor folks, I've noticed, do very loose pencils and tighter inks, more detail with the inks, less detail with the pencils. I'm not there yet, and this whole channel is about learning together, and so I'm still learning that, and I hope that that kind of gives you guys the confidence to not feel like you have to jump right into what you see some of these excellent artists, these pros doing. Now, as far as the piece goes, I'm going to leave the football goalpost out because I needed that space for MoogeegooM and Mother Fluffer.
Hey, you. Did you find the best spot in the house? Good job. Good job.
But I did want to make sure that I put a little bit of the scenery in the background, so I put the bleachers in there. Now here I'm just taking those pencils out, and I've got my with my putty eraser, and I'm going in with the watercolors. Getting skin tone, skin tone can be any range of color, and especially with Bender in this picture, he's kind of in the shadows, and even in the movie, this still is kind of a little bit dark, the still that I've got here, but he is kind of in the shadows, and they took the scene was filmed, I'm guessing, at sunrise. You wouldn't want to risk losing the light and film it at sunset, so it's lit very strange. There's not a lot of shadow, but it is dim. So as far as the colors go, you can kind of see it's a drab green, a real dark, not even darker than olive green, I would say, for his jacket and his pants. They're very close, very similar in color. His pants have a bit more brown in them. And I'm just mixing as I go. I know a lot of watercolor artists, some of the greats, mix a lot of their colors like right off the bat, and they have enough to continue through the whole piece so that there's a consistency with the colors throughout. That's something that I'm still learning on, how to mix enough and get the same value. And I know with watercolors you can keep adding water, or even if you have something that's too light, you can add more paint. So I'm still learning that as far as amounts to get the values that you want. So after I got his pants and his jacket, going in for that, I love his double layer grunge. 1985 grunge wasn't quite upon us, but this guy, I would say Bender probably started grunge, at least in modern day pop culture, or pop culture that followed the 80s into the 90s. The 90s were the grunge era. This guy, he just exudes grunge, and I love that. I was a big grunge kid growing up. I was in a band, and we tried to emulate all those guys, Pearl Jam and all that. So one of the reasons I love Bender. But the whole movie, awesome cast. Everybody in it is so perfect and so different. The contrast in the characters is so amazing. So getting as far as the details of the rest of his outfit, another detail was the handkerchief or bandana or whatever it is that's tied around his ankle down there. I used a lot of the same colors and same values for his shirt. The red of his shirt, the red of his bandana down there, the green of his jacket, the green of his pants. I lightened the green a little bit for his overshirt because it's got a little bit more gray going on. And then right here doing the brown of his hair, I really went dark, real dark values on the brown. And with watercolor, as it dries, it lightens up. Everything's going to lighten. So don't be afraid to like put a layer down. You're happy with it. It looks really dark, like with his hair. And maybe you need to come back again with some more over the top of that first layer. Don't be afraid to do that. You can always lighten things up if you need to with water, or you can use something like a Prisma white colored pencil to shade over it. Just make sure everything's dry before you bring colored pencils into the piece. Getting his glove there on his hand. I'm not great with hands either, human hands, so I was really happy with how that hand turned out, because it's kind of the most important part of this piece is his hand. It's up in the position of it, why he's doing it, the whole just that he's doing it, putting his hand up like that, like, he had a great day, and Bender doesn't get a lot of great days from the way we get to know his character. So it's really great that the scene and the image as it's paused embodies so much character, so much emotion, different emotions that he experienced throughout the day. Because he came out of the day kind of changed, at least modified or evolved as a human being. Now I'm going in with my I kind of have specific colors that I use for MoogeegooM, Mooge, and Mother Fluffer. Mooge was all white and light browns, and she only has 1, 2, 3, 4 colors to her, including white. MoogeegooM, similarly, 1, 2, 3. He's got white, black, brown, 1 shade of brown. Mooge had 3 shades of brown, and then white and black. So I guess that's 5 technically. And then Mother Fluffer is an orange cat and pink nose. And I like to, when I can and when I remember to, and when my hand lets me do it, I have a very shaky hand. I like to give them color to their eyes. MoogeegooM and Mooge both had brown eyes. Fluff has kind of bluish green. It definitely adds to it. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I intentionally leave it out and make the eyes black. But when you do that, one of the most valuable things that I learned with eyes, and it's for a good artist, it's probably common sense, but those reflection points in the eye really make the difference. Especially though, if it's just a solid black eyeball. And when you watercolor, technically you're supposed to leave white, the paper showing through white for those reflection points, for lighter values, for lighter areas, so that you can, because when you watercolor, you go backwards. You start with the lighter stuff and you go backwards into the darker stuff. I still haven't become comfortable with that, I guess is the best way to say it. So I just go at it. And if I need to lighten something, or I need those reflection points, I'll take a white jelly roll pen, or my Prismacolor colored pencil, and get white and highlights where I need them. And I know my watercolors will benefit from learning the correct way to do it, and I will in time. And I'll share that with you all in time. But right now, that's kind of where I'm at. So here, I slowed it down on this part because I'm doing the 3D glasses, the blue and the red of the 3D glasses, and this was pretty nerve-wracking with my shaky hand, because the white border of the 3D glasses isn't very thick, and you want it to be, it can be whatever you want, but I wanted it to be stark white, so that there's the contrast between the blue and the red and the white. So I had to be very careful as to not get, not to color outside the lines, I guess. But they turned out great. So now we're moving on to the green of the grass, and grass is something another thing I'm still learning, whether I'm using watercolors or markers. Grass is very splotchy. It's very inconsistent. And one thing with watercolor is you can, those brush strokes that are sometimes left in the watercolor, especially on large areas, can sometimes work to your advantage, especially when you're doing stuff like grass or ground, and then also sky. There's a lot of wiggle room and experimentation you can use. But one thing I learned with this piece is it's easy to get the larger areas that are away from and not close to the figures, the characters, but then you need to fill in that outline. And when you fill in that outline, it leaves another brush stroke line around the edge, almost like there's a green border around them. But with watercolors and with colored markers, at least Copics, with watercolors specifically, you can, if you have that outline around the characters, you can then just use water to pull it away, to pull that outline away from the character into the grass so that it blends seamlessly. And you get rid of those brush strokes. Similarly here with the gray of the stadium seating or the bleachers, it's easy to get the large areas with the gray, but then you want to be careful around the characters. You don't want the green of the coat to bleed out into the gray, or like with MoogeegooM, the black would be really easy to bleed out into the green. And again, got the large areas and then did the border and then pulled it away with water. Now here for the sky, I'm just using clean water and I'm wetting the canvas, the surface, the paper. And I'm doing that so that when I add paint to it, I'm getting it pretty wet. So you want to make sure everything else is dry before you do this, or just be careful around it, the borders of the characters. But when you have a wet surface like that and you add wet paint to it, the paint will move, it'll bleed, it'll travel through the water. And I wanted that effect with the sky because I'm adding a little bit more, I'm making the sky a little bit more dynamic than it is in the picture that you can see there in the upper left corner. Blue and purple, I love. The combo is probably my favorite color combo of all time. It's very 80s, it's very Miami Vice. It's the epitome, it's like the perfect go-to backdrop for myself that I love using. And when you've got a wet canvas and you bring those purples and the purple and blue in, they'll mix together, they'll create gradients, they'll kind of have fun moving around each other and into each other, and the two colors mix very well. They don't turn muddy, they don't turn dark. They just complement each other so well. And so that's what I'm doing here, and I just kind of keep touching it where I want to have a little bit more color, or you can take away with more water. You can move the paint around that's already there with just water moving around on your canvas, excuse me.
Hey buddy, you got a good spot? You got a good spot too? Good job. In the bean. Good job, buddy.
So there was MoogeegooM hanging out in his favorite beanbag chair. I bought that beanbag chair for Mooj just before she passed, and she actually never got to sit in it. We got the beanbag chair. It arrived the day she ended up passing away, but MoogeegooM has definitely used it, and Mother Fluffer loves it as well. And I know Mooj is sitting there right next to them in her spiritual form. What you're seeing now is like I was talking about earlier, with adding the lighter highlights and kind of cheating in a way, but also I'm using my gel pens. I use my jelly rolls, and then that's a Signo for a thicker line. And this was because I didn't leave the white exposed so that I could get those highlight points in the reflection areas. And even though there's not a reflection off of a jacket per se, a cloth jacket, or even hair of dog hair or cat hair, the highlight of the white adds a little bit of a dimension and depth, and also the contrast between layers of hair. Like Mooj has the hair of her head around her head, and then like her skull, and then her ears. And I use the white to kind of separate the two, so you can see that one is separate from the other. I always put like a glint on their noses, and I like to highlight Mother Fluffer as well. And then I just kind of go back in with touch-ups with the ink pen, where the watercolor might have dulled it a little, or the paint might be a little too dark and it's gone over those lines, those outlines. And then also the shadows at their feet. I think I forgot to say something about that, but that's also pretty important to have a shadow, a foot shadow. It separates them from the grass, from the ground, which you can see I've applied there. Just going back, making sure there's a contrast, the proper contrast that I'm happy with. So now, kind of the last step here, and I'll still come back and add a little bit more detail with the pens, but this is shading with the watercolor. And I don't use just a straight up dulled black. I add a little bit of blue to it, because if you look at shadows, it's not just gray or black or shades of different values of black and white. There's a blue to a shadow. There's a blue hue to it. So I add a little bit of dark blue and it's mostly dark blue, and then I added a touch of black. And I'm just kind of hitting him where his jacket would fall over another piece of clothing, where there's a wrinkle, cuffs. And then I also make sure to hit, and it just makes separates everything, so it's not so flat. But I also make sure to add a little bit, and I lighten it even more to the animals, specifically with Mooj under her chin. There's going to be a shadow there that I'm doing right now. Maybe on the inner part of their legs, of her legs anyway. I do it with Mother Fluffer as well. I'll add a little bit, and it just separates everything, and it gives a little bit of contrast. There you go with the foot shadow, just making sure that's a little bit more prominent, because it fades after it dries. And just coming in with the folds of Bender's clothes, of his jacket, his collars. He's got 3 collars? 1, 2, 3. The jacket and 2 shirts. That's a heck of a way to dress. And just little touch-ups here and there, a little bit of shade, a little bit of shadow. The bleachers, they needed a little bit of depth, so I'm adding that same lightened black with a bit of blue to the fence, to the bleachers and stuff, just to define everything a little bit more. And then coming back in with the pen, make everything pop just a little bit.
What's happening over here? Are you a good boy? Did you like your treats, buddy? Is your sister right there? She is. She's right there. Let's look at her. Hi. That's your favorite new spot, right? Favorite new spot? Good girl. Good boy. Say bye.
Those guys love hanging out together. I love it so much. So that's it. I mean, that's the piece. So now it's the de-taping, and just go real slow, even though I've sped this up a little bit. Go real slow, and I like to keep a finger right behind the tape as it peels off, pushing down the piece of the paper. so that it doesn't tear. And if it does, you can almost always recover from it. And that's the piece there. Now here's a little zoom in. But thank you guys so much for hanging out and watching this. This piece means so much to me, to mix my kids, basically my animals, in with my favorite movie. This is definitely going to be on my wall. But know that a lot of these pieces I finish, I put them in my shop, and I'll have the link below in the description, along with my Patreon. And if anybody ever sees anything or gets an idea for a commission, just reach out and comment, and I'll get back to you. Thank you. Sit, Moojie, sit. Good dog.